whatever questions you ask, we always say Vedanta is a solution. And Vedanta is a solution. So many people, they question, how can Vedanta solve all problems? Surely there must be something that Vedanta can't deal with. So Vedanta solves all the problems. Shankara gives a beautiful example to help us understand how one knowledge can solve all your problems. And the example he gives is with reference to direction. So to solve the problem of directions, he says all that you need to know is which side is north. Whether you want to go southeast, whether you want to go southwest. When you go southwest, there's no north, but if you know north, you can figure out the rest of the things. So one direction, if you know, you got that fixation, you can figure out the rest of the things. So similarly, what is Vedanta is that direction to the self. So once you fix that direction, the rest of it falls in place. And this is what we call as clarity. So clarity of thinking is that clear focus you get in life. So clarity comes out of the development of the intellect. Clarity means to see things as they are. That's all. Nothing more than that. When you see things as they are without being clouded by your desires and attachments, you have clarity. That's why we suggest, if you want to take any decisions, you make any choices, try and do it first thing in the morning. Because your clarity is best. Your intellect is not clouded by your desires. Your desires have not woken up as yet. So you wake up first thing in the morning. If you wake up between 4 and 6, your intellect is awake. Your desires are still not awake. So if you use your intellect at that time, you can make good decisions. And as the day starts, the desires warm up, the desires come out. So it becomes far more difficult for you to choose correctly when you're clouded by your desires. So clarity is to see things as they are. The Parsi community in India, a very famous community in India. Parsis are essentially Iranians, and they migrated from Iran to flee the persecution. The Muslim rulers came to flee that. They all came, and now one of the most successful communities in India are the Parsis. So when they first came to India, they came to Gujarat and they anchored the ship, and the head person went ashore to meet the king to say that we'd like to come and settle down here. So when they came in, the king said, "Oh, very well, you all have come, but you know what, we're very sorry, we are full up. There's no space." "Oh, is it so?" So to demonstrate that, what the king did was, he brought a full glass of milk and he said, "It's full up. We can't accommodate you." So now the whole lot have to go back and get persecuted. So what the head person did was, he put few spoons of sugar in that and gave it back to the king. He said, we'll be like sugar in the milk. We will get absorbed and we'll sweeten your community. The king said, "Please, you're welcome. We want these kind of people." So this is clarity. Clarity means to just see things in the right way and to deal with it in a proper way. So for which, if you're clouded by your desires, if there's fear, if there's anxiety, if there's anger, and all those kind of emotions, then you lose the clarity. You will not be able to think clearly. Even yesterday we saw the movie. See, the fellow had clarity, Sidney Carton. He was objective. He's not clouded by the emotions. So if you think clearly and try to understand who is a self-controlled person, we defined what self-control was and we looked at the various aspects of self-control in the first lecture. So continuing from there, if you were to define a self-controlled person, if you want to find out for yourself how much of self-control do I have, there are 4 factors you need to take into consideration. The first factor to find out whether you have self-control or not is whether you have a desire for it. If you don't have a desire for it, and if you say, I'm practicing self-control, it's meaningless. So I don't have a desire to drink, and if I say I'm self-controlled when you put drinks in front of me, it's not self-control, I just don't have a desire for it, I don't have a taste for it. So the first requirement is you need to have a taste for it, you need to like it, you need to have a desire for it. Number 1. Number 2 is you need to know the knowledge of the pleasure content. You need to understand the value of the enjoyment in that object, in that experience. So a person was driving an old, run-down car, and his friends kept telling him, listen man, get a BMW. I'm not interested. Okay. Until his sons forced him. Without him knowing, they might have used the credit card. They bought the BMW. Once he sat down, started driving, superb car. It's really good, you know. So many gadgets, so many things are there. So you may not know the pleasure of it, the value of it. So you say, I'm not interested. It's not that you're not interested. You don't know the knowledge of it. So second requirement is you need to know how pleasurable it is. Third is that you should have a capacity to enjoy it. I'm not interested in acquiring a villa in the Alps. You don't have a capacity to buy it. So you can coolly say today, I'm not interested. So you should have the capacity to get it. See, it's interesting. When you have the capacity, that's when the desire comes in. It's interesting. You know? When you can afford it, then those kind of people also will come to you with that. See, suppose you win the lottery today. You will get all the estate agents, everybody calling you. We got this new property, we got this, that, you know. So the desires come when you have the capacity. Third is the object should be available to you. So you may like something, you may have the capacity to enjoy it, you may know the value of it, but the object is not available. Let's say you want to have pan.
What's that?
Pan is a betel leaf.
Oh.
Betel leaf with a little bit of stuff inside.
Okay.
And as a digestive, you know, when you finish the meal in India, they give you this pan. So as Indians, many of us will say, oh God, there's no pan here in Stavridon. They say, well, weekend I'm controlled. Big deal, it's not available to you. Even if you want, you can't get it. So, in that sense, first thing is, do you have a desire for it? If you say yes, tick, I have a desire for it, I like it. And you know the pleasure content of it. My God, it's really pleasurable. It's a lot of pleasure. And I have the capacity. Capacity not only materially but physically also. At 80, if you say I'm not interested, you lost the capacity. So you have the capacity. And the object is available to you. It's there with you. You know how to enjoy it. You have a desire. Everything is there. And then if you say, no thank you. After all these 4 factors, if you say no thank you, then it means you are self-controlled. So you see that desire, knowledge, capacity, and the object is available.
Why would you need to say no thank you? I mean, if all those things are in place.
No, it's all there, but you're not attracted towards it.
Yeah, but that's not self-control, is it? If I'm not attracted towards it. I thought self-control.
Attracted towards it, and in that situation, the desire is there, knowledge is there, it's all available. But if your intellect says no, you ought not to have it, you say fine, no thank you. We are not saying you should not contact it, but if the intellect tells you not to contact it, you don't contact it. But the desire is there, it's available, everything is there. And this you can achieve only through knowledge. If you analyze it this way, these are the 4 factors. Otherwise, a person could wrongly practice self-control. Now, why we are going through all these 4 factors is a person can say, I'm practicing self-control, I'm not interested in this, because he doesn't have a desire, or he doesn't have knowledge, he doesn't have capacity, or the object is not available. So we are eliminating all those factors. So if after all this you can still practice self-control, then it means that you have the wisdom, you have the knowledge. So true self-control comes out of knowledge, comes out of wisdom. So when you are anchored in the wisdom of the self, the world doesn't tempt you. So there's no temptation. There's an example given of a sage. In Sanskrit, a sage is called a rishi. R-I-S-H-I, rishi. His name was Narayana Rishi. And Narayana Rishi, the example given was that he was meditating in the jungles as they do. And when he was meditating for years and years, his whole body got covered with dust. His whole body was covered with dust. And a lady comes to tempt him. And this is what Indra does from heaven. He sends these women, to tempt these sages. So he sent, it's all symbolic. So he sent this lady. And she came down, attractive, beautiful. And Narayana Rishi was meditating. So he opened his eyes, he saw this lady. He took a bit of dust from him, from his body, just scraped a bit of dust and threw that dust. Another lady far more beautiful than her was created. She ran off, You understand? See what beautiful parables they give us.
I'm sorry, I haven't got it.
Obviously, I have not explained it. I only told you. You have to practice self-control. You won't allow me to talk otherwise. So, but you got what I'm saying. She came and he's full of dust. He looked at her. He knew obviously what she's come for. So he takes a bit of dust from his body and flicks it. Another more beautiful woman, Miss World and Miss Universe. So she's great. And she felt embarrassed and left. I don't know what happened to the other lady. So, what does it indicate? What is the symbolism of this?
There will always be objects that self-control. There's always going to be something better that you can go and chase after.
What is that dust? Fix that dust. See, that's what we're saying, the knowledge. See, what he had is from his spiritual development, whatever he's developed, the spiritual power. The spiritual power is far more enchanting and enjoyable than the sense objects. So a little bit of it is enough to create something far more attractive than the most beautiful woman. So much of power is there, so much of enjoyment is there, which is acquired through spiritual development. So how can that person fall for any sense objects? That's what he's saying. How can this fellow be attracted towards anything? What temptation, what attraction? When you have all that wealth within you, you have all that knowledge. So the goal of self-control is that one day you don't have to practice self-control. That's what Narayana Rishi is indicating. He just throws a thing. What is the self-control? There is no self-control. He's gone beyond self-control. So the goal of self-control is you don't have to practice self-control. So you can contact the world freely, you can enjoy anything and nothing will violate your self-control. That is the state of perfection. So you put in all this effort to get to a state of effortlessness. You become effortless through effort. So it doesn't tempt you, doesn't attract you anymore because you are anchored in the knowledge of the self. And this is beautifully captured in the Bhajagovindam. And many of us will know the verse in the Bhajagovindam, oft-quoted verse, Yoga Ratova, Bhoga Ratova, Sangha Ratova, Sangha Vihinaha, Yasya Brahmani Ramate Chittam Nandati Nandati Nandateva. So reveling in spiritual discipline or sense enjoyment, reveling in company or in solitude. He whose mind rests in Brahman, Brahman means the supreme reality. He's got the knowledge of the self. He is happy, happy, indeed happy. So 3 times he says happy, happy, happy for the 3 levels of the personality, physically, emotionally, intellectually. Verse 19. Bhajagovindam. Meaning he contacts the world, whether he is in the sensual enjoyment or whether he is in a spiritual environment, it makes no difference to him. But when you have a desire, when you have an attraction, you may have to sometimes avoid a sensual environment. So the practice of self-control is different from the state of self-control. When you achieve the state of self-control, you don't have to withdraw from anything. The sense objects will be scared of you. You are so powerful. So this is so you need to put in that effort, but when you put in that effort, you are rewarded. You reach a state of no effort. So what is that effort? See, when you're putting in that effort, there is an internal struggle. What is that struggle? Why is there a struggle internally? So we talk about effort. What is effort?
Intellect controlling the mind.
Intellect controlling the mind. So both are pulling you in different directions. A tug of war. The tug of war is between the mind and the intellect. So the mind pulls you in one direction, the intellect is pulling you in the other direction. I like to do this. No, it's not right for you to do it. No, I like to do it. No, it's not right for you to do it. So this tug of war is going on. So that tug of war is a struggle. That inner struggle that you're facing all the time. But if you don't worrying about your intellect, there won't be any struggle. If you just keep giving into the mind, whatever the mind wants, take it. If you keep on feeding the mind, there won't be any struggle. But the moment you start saying, no, I don't want to go with what the mind is saying, then there's a struggle. Then there's an effort. And that's the start of the spiritual journey. The start of the spiritual journey, how do you know that you've started the spiritual journey? There will be a struggle. So if you say, I'm very peaceful, all is well and relaxed, means you've not started. Or you're stuck somewhere. It has to be the constant struggle. You know, when you drive, because now we use automatic, but earlier when you learnt the clutch, is what we call as a biting point. You have to maintain, especially on a slope. They ask you to go stop the car and then ask you to move without it going back. You got to get the biting point, the clutch and the accelerator. You got to maintain it. That is the biting point. You need to have that biting point all the time. Little bit of that struggle, little bit of that pain, little bit of that stretch. It's even physically, to improve your muscles, you need to have that stretch constantly. If you're too comfortable, there's no growth. And that's why everyone rushes for meditation. Why do you all go to meditation classes, breathing classes? Because you don't want to put in effort. I want to be peaceful. Come here, it's effort, so you don't want to come. So the effort, without pain, without struggle, there's no growth. But if you overdo it, then it will put you off. So you shouldn't get into too much of struggle. Then you won't be able to work. If you underdo it, there won't be any growth. So you've got to get that biting point right. Just maintain a little bit of effort, a little bit of struggle, all the way through. And this applies not only in the start of the spiritual journey, it applies all the way through. Even when a person is 75% developed, if he says, I'm relaxed, gone, there's no growth. So there's a danger right through the journey. So Robert Browning says, when the fight begins within himself, a man's worth something. When the fight begins within himself, a man's worth something. Meaning you've started development when you start the struggle. Get up in the morning, 5 o'clock, and say, gosh, struggle. It's difficult. So to accomplish this, not only self-control, but just in general, for spiritual development, there's a plan of action. There's a few points that I put together as to what should we all do. Now that you know the basics in terms of self-control and what needs to be done, you fix a goal, you use your intellect to steer the mind towards the goal, and any temptations come, you practice that self-control, you got to regulate it. So all that we've discussed so far. Now in terms of the plan of action, now first thing what we all should consider is, where is our mind all the time? What are we thinking about in different situations, in different experiences? So there should be an awareness of what goes on in your mind. This is not to criticize yourself, this is not to praise yourself, but just an objective understanding of what's happening within you. It's almost like you have to take a screenshot of your mind all times. You all understand screenshot? Otherwise, I'll ask Fernando to give a lecture to everybody on what is screenshot. You press home button and
The off button.
huh?
Press the home button and the off button, and it takes straight.
Home button, off button. Together you got to press. You know that, Harpa?
I don't know.
You know, you'll learn something, you know. Home button and the off button. Both.
Yes.
There, see. Come.
So your phone's on, you want to take a screenshot, you get your home button, you get your off button, do it together and it gets a screenshot. That's on an Apple phone. I don't know about other phones.
Just put it together. You get the screenshot. No, how do you get a screenshot of the mind? I don't know. You close your eyes and capture what's happening in the mind. That's all we say. Get that picture of what's happening inside. So just an awareness. That's all. Just an awareness of what's going on with it. So different people think differently. So there was a comedian who was explaining, is computer male or female? And they called a group of people and segregated them, and they gave points, you know. First the men gave points, and they decided computer is female. And there were points the men gave. And then the women gave points, proving that the computer is male. A very, very humorous episode. I thought it's best we ask him only to do it. So we just have this clip. It's a 2-minute clip. Yes, oh, we need the audio. Is the audio connected? Is that one there? Or go to that thing only, YouTube thing. No. I have it on the email. Or go to YouTube and just search his computer name. It's not coming, is it? Any idea about this?
You just need to play it on the computer.
Hmm?
You need to play it on the computer.
No, I think that.
And then like just play YouTube.
Yeah, it's not coming directly.
Maybe not. Don't do it on the
Is it
screen.
coming on the computer?
Yeah, it's coming on the computer.
That's where is it?
Yeah, it's playing on the computer is not playing on the screen. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
It's definitely a man.
We should actually have a debate.
I think one each side will.
It's obvious. We're not prepared.
No, first he says white should be female, no? So funny and so convincing.
There you go.
There.
There.
Wait,
Green. Who is she?
no, this is it now.
Okay.
Skip ahead. Skip ahead. This is the album.
Volume.
Mm-hmm.
Volume. Okay, you want to put this one?
Just put the mic on.
Like you put the mic. It was connected on the PowerPoint.
Huh?
It worked before on the PowerPoint.
Hmm. Oh, the sound is it? I'm not sure. Oh, it's coming. No. Sound is. Check the computer sound. Oh, yeah, it's full.
Which usually leads to unhappiness
Hey.
and regret.
No.
Skip.
You know, you go to system preference and see the audio output.
Is your mate Wednesday? It's your cheap. Yes, it's
Maybe if you go back, because the video wasn't on.
There was a group of adults who were taking a computer science course at a community college, and after a few weeks of classes, the professor decided to have some fun one day as a little learning activity, and he divided them by sex, and he put the men on one side of the room, women on the other side of the room, and said, I want you all to do a project for the next 10 minutes, and I want you to determine what gender computers ought to be. And so they deliberated, so finally, here come the men, they voted unanimously that computers should be referred to in the gender. And so the professor said, all right, share with me your points. They had 4 points. They said, the reason why computers should be spoken of in the feminine gender is because no one but their creator understands their internal logic.
Yeah, okay. No, full screen. Okay.
who were taking a computer science course at a community college, and after a few weeks of classes, the professor decided to have some fun one day as a little learning activity, and he divided them by sex, and he put the men on one side of the room, women on the other side of the room. He said, I want you all to do a project for the next 10 minutes, and I want you to determine what gender computers ought to be. And so they deliberated. So finally, here come the men. They voted unanimously that computers should be referred to in the feminine gender. And so the professor said, all right, share with me your points. They had 4 points. They said, the reason why computers should be spoken of in the feminine gender is because no one but their creator understands their internal logic. The second reason is because when computers communicate with each other, they speak in code language that only they and experts can understand. The third reason is because every mistake you make is stored on their hard drive for later retrieval. The fourth reason, these men said, because as soon as you commit to one, you find yourself spending half your paycheck on accessorizing it. But oh, don't laugh too hard, because the women had the last word on this subject. The women voted unanimously. Computers must be in the masculine gender. Why? As they gave their report, they said, first of all, in order to get their attention, you have to turn them on. Secondly, they have a lot of data but still can't think for themselves. Thirdly, they're supposed to help you solve problems, but half the time they are the problem. And the final reason they gave was because as soon as you commit to one, you realize that if you'd waited a little longer, you could have gotten a better model.
So the debate continues. You need an objectivity, to have a humor. So first is, I don't know what the first point was, but anyway. First is awareness of what's going on in the mind. Second is when you're aware, what you will realize is that your desires, they manifest passively or actively. And what I mean by that is, the desire gets triggered off by the environment sometimes. For example, a person goes into a bar or into a casino, the desire comes up, or he passes the bar or the casino, the desire comes up. So this is passive. Or the desire can come actively without the environment being there. So irrespective of the environment, the desire can still come. In other words, in a positive environment, you can have negative thoughts. So it's not necessary that your mind is always ruled by the environment. So a person can go into a temple or a church, and instead of thinking about God, he's thinking how wealthy this temple is. This guy has got a lot of money. So you have materialistic thoughts in a spiritual environment. So definitely it's not the environment that is bringing out the thoughts, it's your own mind. A person like Othello suspected Desdemona of having an affair with someone else without any basis. So you could be in the company of a virtuous person and still have thoughts of jealousy and hatred, negativity. It's not created by the environment, it's created by your mind. So when you are aware of how your mind functions in different situations, you realize that it is not the world, it's not the environment that is causing it, but it is your own mind. So unless you rehabilitate the mind, you won't clean the mind. you won't be able to sort out this problem.
Does the environment have any?
We'll come to that once. The need for rehabilitation, the inner rehabilitation, and to rehabilitate the mind is a process what we call as dry docking. You've got to dry dock your personality. So if your mind is all the time involved in dealing with the world, you will not be able to rehabilitate it. So you've got to dry dock the mind like you dry dock the ship. Take the ship out of the water and clean it up so that it can get back to the water. Similarly, take the mind away from the world for a short while. So when you study every morning, when you do the e-learning, you're taking the mind away from the world, so to speak. So an hour a day, at least, it helps to clean the mind. And then what do? Why are you cleaning the mind? So that you get back into the world. The third aspect to consider in the plan of action is we discussed upon the importance of the goal, but fix a realistic goal for yourself. If you don't fix a realistic goal or you have an unrealistic goal, there won't be any effort, there won't be any growth. So start with the realistic goal. Again, if you are in doubt between two goals, one goal is very high, one goal looks low, which should I take? Take the lower goal. If you are in doubt. Because soon you will be able to accomplish this low goal and you will be ready for the higher. So the progress will be there. So with whatever capacity you have, stretch yourself. And once you can stretch more, then you can stretch more. You can keep on improving. Swamiji says the way to more light is the faithful use of what you have. It's in the Vedanta treatise. The way to more light is the faithful use of what you have. So use your existing capacity. Don't think, oh, if I change this environment, if I go there, if the thing, oh, winter I can't wake up, I'll wait for summer to wake up in the morning. Winter is too difficult, morning you can't. So instead of going to all those factors, whatever you can do best today, start with that. The way to more light is the faithful use of what you have. And a beautiful analogy explains this, like the headlights of a car, the headlights of a vehicle. The headlights of the vehicle throws the light a few hundred yards. But as you keep driving, the road before you gets further and further illuminated. If you say, no, the whole journey is not illuminated, I don't know the self today, I don't know what selflessness is, I don't understand all those things, I'll wait till I understand, only then I will put in effort, you will never grow. So there may be things which you will not understand today, doesn't matter. With what you understand, with the headlights, you move. When you move forward, something else becomes clearer. It becomes clearer, until you hit it. Until one day you say, yes, now I understand what the self is. And you go straight for that. But if you wait till you understand, you will never grow, you'll never progress. So it's a beautiful example. Like the headlights of the car helps you to drive for the whole journey. Though the whole road could be dark, still a few 100 yards, it gets illuminated. The fourth point is that when the mind gets distracted and you want to bring it back in line with the goal, or it could be an action, you want to concentrate on that action, there are two ways you can control it. The two ways you can bring it back. One is the intellectual control, and second is emotional appeal. So you've got to use the intellect to bring the mind back. And what is the use of the intellect is by reasoning. So you reason with the mind. Tell the mind how important it is. I need to focus on this. I need to concentrate on this. So, wherever passion drives you, let reason hold the reins, says Benjamin Franklin. Passion drives you, let reason hold the reins. So what holds the mind is the reason or the intellect. The passions take you in different directions. You've got to rein it back. And in some situations you may find that even by reasoning you may not be able to bring it back easily. So there you use what is known as emotional appeals. You appeal to the emotions of the mind. And some of the emotional appeals, which is given in the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, he says, first is to persuade the mind. Try with the simpler things and escalate it. So the simplest thing is to persuade the mind. Please, 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 please. Please, please. Please help me. Please cooperate. Come on, come on. If the mind doesn't cooperate, then tempt the mind. So this weekend you cooperate. Sunday evening, I'll take you to a restaurant. So you tempt the mind. So at least for the weekend, you will be free from it. If the mind still doesn't cooperate, the third method or the third appeal is to observe the mind. Observing the mind is, again, not criticizing the mind, just to observe. It is a very useful technique to manage young children, kids. So to manage kids, the very good methods is to observe them. Observe them is, you don't comment on what they do. You shouldn't smile at them. They'll look at you and they'll smile. You shouldn't smile back. You shouldn't frown either. It's very difficult. You shouldn't frown, you shouldn't smile, almost expressionless. Just observe. So when you observe the mind becomes conscious of itself. Exactly like this. You make them conscious. When it becomes conscious, it understands it's doing something wrong. So they will say, if you try this out, why are you looking at me? Why are you looking at me? You shouldn't say anything even then. Like just generally look. You know? So then they themselves stop it. Whatever absurd things they're doing. But if you tell them you're doing absurd things, you should be doing this, you've got to behave yourself, they'll do more. Just to irritate you. So observe the mind. Similarly, you've got to observe your own mind. My God, I'm in such a positive environment. Where did I get this sensual thought? Where did I get this negative thought now? Let's say you're sitting here, it comes, oh, I shouldn't get this thought. It's wrong to get this thought. That's not the way to deal with it. Just observe. My God, in this environment, I'm getting that thought. Just observe it. And after a while, it dies away. The moment you resist it, it'll grow further. If these things don't work, you escalate into fear. You don't do this, is what happened. You infuse fear into the mind, you threaten the mind. And still, if the mind doesn't cooperate, the last option, which should not be used frequently, because it will suppress you. But the last option, the last tool you have is to punish the mind. You deny it, punish it. But that's the very last thing you'll have to do. Provided you try out all these things, all fails in important situations, you'll have to do it. But like I said, if you punish the mind too much, it'll suppress the mind. It's not recommended to do it frequently. So all these things will ensure that you have a clear focus towards that idea. See, like for example, the sports persons, like footballers, cricketers and all that, the stadium, thousands and thousands of people and millions are watching all over the world. They have to cut out all that and concentrate on the game. The professional footballers, they know how to do that. They're trained to do that. So all the noise of the crowd, they should, even in tennis, you'll find the whole crowd supports Federer. And Nadal is paying him. He shouldn't get influenced by that. Just focus on the game. So don't allow anything else to distract you from what you've chosen to do. So if you do all these things, then with reference to self-control as such, there are 3 types of self-control. The first is at the sense level. If you remember the first talk, we put the diagrams, senses, mind, intellect. So at the sense level, you practice sense control. And then you have the mind. So all 3 levels of the personality, what is the type of control you've got to exert? So sense control, so what is sense control? Now, what happens in sense control, as we have defined self-control, it is not to get away from the sense objects. It is not to deny sense objects. That is not self-control. So self-control with reference to the senses is when you contact the senses, when you enjoy the senses, ensure that you end perception with perception. So what are the sense enjoyments? Color and form for the eyes, smell for the nose, sound for the ears, taste for the tongue, touch for the skin. So when these enjoyments, you partake of it, you indulge in it. So what is the opposite of indulgence? To end that enjoyment with that enjoyment. To end perception with perception. When you go through that perception, when you complete that perception, don't linger further upon it. So what creates the desires is the lingering upon that enjoyment which you have gone through. So there is an enjoyment that you're going through. Now this enjoyment does not produce the desires. So what creates desires is, it forms ripples in the mind. So these ripples, this lingering upon that enjoyment you went through, this creates the desires. So avoid lingering upon that enjoyment that you went through. You would like to have Nutella, 7 Nutellas. You can have 10 Nutellas. Doesn't matter. Others may get affected. Let them get affected. But it won't matter to you. So that is not going to create the desire. But what will create the desire? After eating that, you are reliving the enjoyment. You are thinking about it the whole day. It's so much fun, so much this thing. And you talk about it. That's what all these blogs and all are popular. They blog about it, they talk about it. So what does it do, all these blogs and all that? It just strengthens the desire. It reinforces the desire. Or it creates new desires. Enjoyment doesn't create the desire. It is the lingering upon that enjoyment that creates the desire. So sense control is not to avoid enjoyment. It is to avoid the lingering upon that enjoyment. So photographs, all these things, it just creates It creates havoc mentally. That's why these smartphones are so attractive. Everyone is so attached to these smartphones because it caters to all these different things. So sense control is to end perception with perception. Then second is at the mental level, the emotional control. So what is the emotional control? So you are exchanging emotions with others. You give emotions. So when you are exchanging emotions with others, when you are sharing emotions with others, one of the things which happens is, again, it creates desires or attachments if you are not careful. So what is the practice we need to follow emotionally is when you get affection from others, when you get, see, if it is a negative emotion, it doesn't matter. You're not interested. You throw it out. If there's a positive emotion, is far more difficult. When you get a positive emotion from others, the danger is you get attached to that person. So to receive the emotion from others and stay with it. That's it. Just to receive the emotion. The most difficult thing to do in life is to receive an emotion. The daughter comes back from the university for the weekend. He comes all the way. Mom says, "Oh, Ali, I've been waiting for you. I really missed you. So nice to come home." Giving that emotion and all that love to the daughter. Daughter comes in, "Mom, you know what, there's a lot of washing to be done. I brought all my washing. I got a bit of pocket money, I need to. And this, that, and you know what, my friend is calling, I need to rush. Bye-bye. Off he goes. So, you may not receive the emotion. Somebody is giving you the emotion. You encash on that emotion. You make use of it without receiving it. So, to receive the emotion is just to receive it and not do anything about it. It's very difficult. So even when someone talks to you, are you giving that person the full attention? It's just to receive whatever they say. So someone is kind to you, someone is good to you, immediately the thought is, how can I make use of this person? So that thought shouldn't be there. Just receive that feeling, just receive the emotion. So emotional control is to be able to receive an emotion and just stay with it. And incidentally, we were talking about emotion even in the Q&A. What happens with emotions is, I did mention about expression of emotions. So when you develop emotions and it goes deeper and deeper, the expression becomes lesser and lesser. So one of the ways of finding out whether you've got finer emotions, deeper emotions, is automatically the expression will become less. But the converse is not true. Just because there is no expression does not mean the emotion is deep. Because you can start practicing it through. You say, no, I'm not going to express. I'm not going to show my emotion. No, that is not the way to do it. But when you start developing more stronger emotions, more deeper emotions, automatically your expressions become less. You almost feel if I express it, I lose the beauty of that emotion. So there's a lot of disturbance in the surface of the ocean, but you go deep into the ocean, it's all still. The emotions work the same way. Then thirdly, at the intellectual level, you practice thought control. So what is thought control is the control of intake of information. There's an information overload. Now is the age of information. Anything you want, it's available to you in a click of a button. So the tendency is to overload your mind with a lot of information. So people are on their phones all the time, on the screens all the time, just overloading yourself with information. You've got to find out what information is relevant to me and just use that information. Otherwise, if you overload yourself with information, you develop what we call as intellectual diarrhea. It doesn't sound nice, but it's a fact. Intellectual diarrhea. You will see that in people who have read too many books. Those who have read too many books, like that, is intellectual diarrhea. They develop. So avoid reading too many things which is not relevant to you. Just because you're excited to read it, just because you find joy in reading it, shouldn't be the reason to read it. Is it relevant to me? Is it going to be useful? That's why you find that the way Swamiji wrote the books, carefully one after the other. If it is necessary, he'll write the next one. If it is necessary, he'll write the next. Very carefully planned out. It is relevant to you to read it. So if you look into all these factors, just a few points for you all to consider. A plan of action. So just work out a few things and see what is it that I need to do. And then you launch yourself on the program. So the result of all this self-control and all the spiritual effort is that you become detached from the world. And the strength of a spiritual person is the detachment. See, what is the strength of a material person? He's got wealth, he's got money, he's got power. You go to a politician, he's got power, he can sign and sanction anything you want. You go to a rich person, he's got money, he can get you anything you want. So material person, their strength is wealth, is power. Similarly, a spiritual person's strength is detachment. Not wanting that. And the detachment is more powerful than the material things. It's beautifully illustrated in parables. It's a beautiful parable. They illustrated Vashishta and Vishwamitra. Vishwamitra was a king. I don't know, you all know Vishwamitra was a sage. He's a sage. We all know Vishwamitra is a sage. Background of Vishwamitra is that he's a king. And he was hunting in the forest with the soldiers, like what kings do. They hunt. And he was hunting. And evening time, they became weary. And by the time it was dark, they all were thirsty and hungry. So they were looking around in the forest whether they could find something, and they found a light. And they all went towards it. It was a hut. And it was a hut of the great sage Vashishta. Vashishta's hut is his home. So they went, and the soldiers went, our king has come. We are all thirsty and hungry. Can you help us? To which Vashishta coolly said, of course, no problem. What do you know, Gaurav? We have not phoned in to tell you the menu, nothing, you know. So within 10 minutes, there was a feast in front of them. The best of food, the best of drinks. They were confused. They said, never mind, anyway we'll eat. So they all enjoyed the meal. And then the king was surprised. How did you organize this in the middle of the forest? To which Vasishtha took Vishwamitra, the king, aside and he said, this is what has given all this. It was the cow Kamadhenu. There's a cow. It's a mythological cow, Kamadhenu. And Kamadhenu is that whatever you ask Kamadhenu, it will give you. Anything you want. So they asked whatever. And Kamadhenu came to stay with Vasishtha, the sage. So Vishwamitra suddenly had an idea. What was the idea he had? Why do you need this? I need it more. I'm the king. If I want to vanquish the enemies, I can ask Kamadhenu to create an army and the enemies will get vanquished. I want to give banquets in the palace. For you it's useless. You're not going to use it. So give me the cow. Vaishishta said, listen, I am not here to give anything. You ask the cow. If it wants to go, let it go. Kamadhenu said, no. I'm staying with Vasishtha. See, look at how the parable goes. So Vishwamitra was furious. He says, you have done something to the cow, confusing it. I'm going to show. So they tried to fight this guy. Oh, Vasishtha, he was a sage in the hut. So they took their bows and arrows and said, release that cow, otherwise we'll shoot you. Vasishtha took his staff, just ordinary, they hold his staff, he took it. And all the fellows fell down. All the soldiers, everyone collapsed. Whole army came, everyone was vanquished. Then Vishwamitra came humbly to the sage. He said, sir, I don't know what's happened here. I'm very sorry for what I've caused. But can you please explain to me, how is it that you have so much power? So Vasishtha asked him, why is Kamadhenu with me? Why doesn't it come to you? So what is the significance of the parable is that wealth or power is with a person who is detached. So a spiritual person, spiritual power wins over the material thing any day. That's what they're saying. The king with all the wealth and all the power can't vanquish the spiritual guy who had nothing with him. So it is the detachment which is far more powerful than the material attachments. And when you are detached, Kamadhenu comes to you. When you don't want anything, it comes to you. No, I want that. And therefore I want to practice self-control. Then you won't get self-control. Self-control means you don't want it. If you drop the desires, you don't want it genuinely, then it comes. So the strength or the strong is lack of desires, is no desires, desirelessness. So that is the result of self-control. So that concludes the 2 sessions.